Well, Jack, this summer I am not watching exclusively Survivor Panama. There's other shows in my docket right now. And I'm
Survivor
watching
Cook Islands, Survivor Samoa,
Cook Islands.
Survivor...
Yeah, all these other Survivor seasons. But in reality, I'm watching Bachelor in Paradise at the same time as this. Bachelor in Paradise, in case you haven't seen it before, you take a bunch of young, hot people, throw them on a beach, let them intermingle, let them pass out roses, and see the love come to the surface. And I think that this week, we got just a little bit of Bachelor in Paradise with Danielle and Austin. I think we were robbed of a potential showmance, but this is Survivor Analytics. My name is Clyde. I'm the true expert. With me, as always, is the voice of the people, and Jack. Jack, how's it going? And how do you feel about the robbed Austin Danielle showmance?
What's up, party people? I actually agree. I was gutted by the outcome of this week, and both for strategic reasons, and I agree. I really did think that there was some chemistry there, some sparks. It felt like that's what they were setting up, right? It was disappointing. I was thinking the same thing. Yeah, this was a hard watch, this episode. I was disappointed by it. That's all I got to say.
Disappointed just with the outcome? Or what about it was disappointing?
Well, I was disappointed with the outcome. I was disappointed with the loss of that showmance. I was disappointed with everything Terry does. Again.
Okay.
Like the guy just cannot stop disappointing me, and I love him. I want to be a Yule head so bad, and it's not working. I want to support him in everything he does blindly, which I did with Yule, and I was right. With Terry, he's a challenge beast, and then every single other thing he does is wrong. It is.
See, I think Terry had a better episode. I'm higher on Terry this week than I was last week.
Okay.
I do agree with what you said where the outcome of this one is a little bit bleak. It looks like we could be headed towards that pagonging that we alluded to in the previous episode.
Yeah.
But with that said, I feel like this week's episode did a better job at building suspense leading up to Tribal Council. At the final 10, I had no confidence in the Lamina players flipping the game in their favor. But going into the Tribal Council of this one, I thought maybe there was a world where Austin and Terry got control of the numbers again. But we'll be diving into all of that later on.
So let's leap in with Aris's little comment here at the beginning. It's sort of an animal shot where he's going snail hunting, and he says, quote, "These snails are like members of Lamina, slimy and hard to get out." I feel like he's been workshopping that for 3 days off camera. Like it feels so staged, especially considering they haven't really had a hard time getting anybody out yet.
Yeah. Like, he calls Austin slimy for Austin throwing the challenge last week and owning up to it. But I don't think that's a slimy move because he was honest at the end of the day. When Aris made that comment, the first thing that I thought was, if Jack ever competes on Survivor, this is the kind of dialogue that we would get from you. I think you would go in there and try to force as many animal shots as possible, walking into the wilderness and saying, "Psh, these birds, just like these contestants, always flying away from me whenever I get close by."
I'm like getting up in the morning, "Hey, how's your night?" "Oh, I got kind of a froggy throat. There's a frog." Like, wow, I'm having a whale of a time on Survivor. Boy, I'm sure pigging out on this rice. Like, it's kind of a forced line. And I want to talk about Terry's decision to strategize with Sally now. It comes out of nowhere, except that he has lost one of his men. And he's like, okay, now I'm going to use this asset that I had last week and didn't speak to. Like, he goes to Sally and says, let's try to go pull in some of the women, right? Let's find somebody to flip, figure out who's on the bottom, and I'm going to work with you this time. Do we get a confessional from Sally in this episode?
I don't think so, to be honest. Which is interesting because she has such an important role in potentially convincing those women to flip over to their side.
We need more. We don't have the screen time. We need more confessional. I need to understand the motivation behind these decisions because it doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't.
And is Sally the first person that Terry shows his idol to?
Yes. Yeah. Do you want to talk about that now? Because, I mean, that's pretty much it. Is he pretty much out of nowhere goes, hey, Sally, I've got the idol, and let me just brag about it for a bit.
He's pretty cocky talking about the idol. He
Very
says that
cocky.
he found it within the first 30 minutes on Exile Island. I don't know if that's true, but the decision to tell Sally first is kind of absurd. We need to remember that Sally was on the bottom of that Lamina tribe for most of the pre-merge. If Dan Fuego is not, taken out of the game unjustifiably, and if there isn't that entire Exile Island twist that saves Sally, she goes home, I think, at the final 11. So this was not a person that Terry has wanted to work with for most of the season. So his one ace in the hole, his one big secret, he decides to tell Sally out of all people. So
Yeah.
I agree with what you said. We needed more insight from Terry, but at the same time, I feel like we get so much insight from Terry. I would rather hear more from contestants like a Sally, like a Danielle, like a Bruce, who are buried more in the edit.
With this idol is so powerful. Do you think that this idol is at its most powerful when nobody knows about it or when everybody knows about it? Because let's be honest, with an idol, realistically, unless you have a ride or die ally who you can tell and truly trust, 98% of the time you tell one person, it's getting out there, right? So if the options most of the time are it's fully public or fully private, which do you think is most advantageous with this version where you reveal after the vote?
That's an interesting question because I think it's very dependent on the era of the show.
Mm-hmm.
If we're talking modern Survivor, I've said it 100 times. Idols are only powerful if they're actually hidden immunity idols. If you leak that to everybody else, all it does is paint a target on your back. But if we're looking at 2006 Survivor Panama in this overpowered version of the idol, it might actually be more powerful when it's public knowledge. And we saw that in Cook Islands. When Yule revealed that to the rest of the cast, it actually scared other contestants away from voting for him. I don't think his name is written down another time that season once he shows the idol to Penner.
Yeah.
So I think back in this point in Survivor history, people play a bit more conservatively. So if you make it public knowledge, you probably have a better chance at going deep into the game, or at least until the point when the idol expires and then people feel like they can take the shot at you.
I guess we're going to see what happens because the idol doesn't go fully public this week. But it feels like that's coming, right? More and more people are getting suspicious. Aris fully is convinced already that it's out there and that Terry has it. Do you want to talk about reward?
Yeah, we can hit on the reward challenge. I like this one.
Me too.
This was a 9-person reward challenge, but they're going to split them up into 3 teams of 3, which is pretty interesting. And the way that this works is that each group of 3 has to grab a bunch of coconuts and load them onto one of the other team's boats.
100 coconuts.
Once you get your 100 coconuts loaded up, you take your boat out to the ocean, grab a flag, come back, and bring that flag and all the coconuts back to shore, where they have a large bucket for you to throw them into. And I like this one a lot because it forces contestants to show their hand a little bit. By putting coconuts into another tribe's boat, you're essentially saying, I don't want you to win the reward challenge. I don't want you to have that extra nourishment for immunity.
Right.
The way that the teams end up working out here, you get one group that is probably the biggest threat just based on the composition and the number of Lamina players. So that team is Shane, Terry, and Austin. When you got Terry and Austin together, they're going to be the biggest threats. And I'm sure you enjoyed the fact that Shane was getting targeted there as well.
I Googled the average weight of a coconut to see how heavy these things are going to end up being with 100 coconuts or some distribution.
Can I guess?
Well, first, before you guess, there's like a top AI result, which is stupid, images. And then the top thing after that is r/survivor on Reddit. How heavy is the bag of coconuts? So on here, and this is jiving with everything else I'm seeing. Give it a guess. 1 coconut.
I'll say 3 pounds.
You are exactly right.
Bang!
I mean, well done. So
Survivor Analytics for a reason.
So 900 pounds of coconuts total on this beach, give or take. Let's say the two boats that are a little more of a threat end up with 80% of them total.
Yeah.
So we've probably got 400 pounds in each, give or take. That's a lot of coconuts.
I think this challenge is also the first point in the season where Aris comes forward more as a leader of the tribe. Up until this point, I've perceived Aris more so as the kooky yoga instructor. In the premiere, he's there with the younger guys' tribe, making them do that exercise where they put their hands on top of each other. So yeah. I never saw him as a very serious contender, but it's not until this challenge when we see Aris call out to Danielle and say, hey, take all your coconuts and make sure you put them into Terry and Austin's boat. We want to make sure that they're malnourished so they can't win immunity later on. And I don't think Danielle's group was going with that strategy until Aris called out to them. Pretty good strat by him, and it actually leads to his side winning the reward challenge. So he wins it with Sally and Bruce.
Yeah, well, I think a couple of things win it for them. I think that's part of it. I would be interested to see what the actual breakdown is on amount, because it's kind of close in the end. But Sally and Bruce and Aris put together a very strong coconut moving system where Shane and Austin and Terry, it's a little more brute force, a little less communication, right? And I think that helps as well. It's kind of close. These teams, that it just felt like kind of a bummer. Like, we knew one of these teams was out so early that Jeff basically dismisses them before anybody's even paddling out, right?
Yeah, the group of Danielle, Courtney, and Sari.
Yeah, you hate to see that, right? Like, because they're still hustling. They're still giving it their best. They're just the slowest group. When you put all the dudes, 2 each on the other tribes at least, you're just going to have a mismatch when they can carry more coconuts because they're bigger people. You know, you see, like, Aris carrying 8 and Bruce carrying 6 and then dropping 4 of them, but still. Like, it just felt kind of unfair, and I know it's random draw, but still. So we have Sally, Aris, and Bruce win out. I apologize. I'm keeping my notes on my phone today to keep an eye on you. And I'm on the road today, if you can tell on our YouTube channel. Shout out at Survivor Analytics on YouTube. Get in the comments. So they win. And they have to exile 2 people, 1 from each of the other groups.
This is where they end up picking Danielle and Austin. The Austin pick makes a lot of sense. You want to send the Lamina player over there.
Yeah.
But with that other trio, the Danielle, Courtney, Sari trio, you have to send a Kasaya player. They pick Danielle under this notion that she can handle it. She's ready to fight the wilderness, I guess.
Yeah.
That's Aris's justification later on. I don't think that Danielle thinks much of it, or at least we don't hear from her. But if I'm in Danielle's shoes, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, oh, maybe I'm not as well positioned in this tribe as I originally thought.
Yeah, she makes a face when he tells her this, and it's hard to read, right? She's clearly not happy with it, but you can't tell if it's temporary or systemic, displeasure. I'm surprised they didn't go for Courtney, to be honest. I'm surprised that Courtney is so wedged into this tribe. And we'll get to this here in a minute with Shane's final 4. But I have had the impression that Courtney has burned a lot of bridges. Aris and Courtney don't seem to get along. She got into Bruce's rock garden. I'm surprised Courtney wasn't the target here. And maybe it is the strength, right? Danielle does seem to be a little bit tougher than Courtney. But I don't know. It was an interesting choice, and yeah.
Maybe from Danielle's perspective, this selection didn't sting as much because it was coming from Bruce and Aris.
Yeah.
Danielle's a girl's girl. She's tightly aligned with Courtney and Sari. So if one of them sent her to Exile Island, maybe her outlook is completely different. But the fact that Aris and Bruce did it to her, I don't think caught her too off guard. We can talk about that Exile Island twist briefly. Not a ton happens there. It is pouring rain
Yeah.
for the entire stretch. I feel like this season in particular has had a lot of rainy days and rainy nights. The only other season that we've covered that I think matches this in terms of difficulty of the conditions is probably Survivor Samoa. I feel like Samoa was another season where it was just downpouring most of the time. You get that confessional from Eric Cardona where he's literally in a tree because he's so wet.
Yes.
And that's kind of how this feels.
Let me ask you, speaking of Samoa, do you think they're glad to have their socks?
Probably.
Yeah, you know who would hate to not, like...
I know. Jason would not be happy. What are we talking about? Oh, we're talking about Exile.
Exile. Yeah, so they just sit in a tree and they bond. But we don't really see them bond. We just see them sit in a tree and say, wow, this sucks. But we get a sense when they come back that they've had a very nice, given the circumstances, relatively nice time. And so I felt like this was laying some solid groundwork for a future alliance, a defection from Danielle, right? But that's all that comes of it.
Yeah, and I'll say it, I wish we got a lot more from the Exile part of this episode. We hear Austin and Danielle say multiple times after this trip that it was such a bonding experience for us. I feel so connected to the other person after toughing it out in the wilderness with them. I don't know what exactly they connected over. What about these two characters, other than being young and hot, do they have in common? Like, Austin is a southern country guy, and Danielle is
from Boston.
Is a Bostonian girl who speaks her mind, and I feel like Austin's a little bit more reserved. So I don't know what brought these characters together, but I guess something happened.
Listen, you suffer with somebody, you get closer, you know? That just happens. But that's pretty much it there. Do you want to talk reward?
Yeah, and this is great.
Yeah, I was watching this episode on my signature 1.5x. I thought it was bed and breakfast. They're going to go spend the night at a B&B and have a nice meal in the morning. Did not realize that it was breakfast in bed. So it's pouring rain like it is on Exile. They finally get picked up, Aris, Bruce, and Sally, and they get taken to this remote beach and are literally put in a big bed like they're Charlie Bucket's grandparents from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and are fed breakfast in bed. And because it's been pouring rain, the whole bed is soaking wet. So they are in this soaked day bed, 3 to a bed, and it's Bruce, Sally, Aris, eating pastries and drinking coffee in the pouring rain.
In the wet bed.
In the wet bed. This is crazy. This is great. I love it.
I love that Jeff and Survivor, at least at this point in the show's history, adopted a real the show must go on philosophy. Yeah. It doesn't matter if there's a hurricane at this beach. We're getting the bed out there and you're going to eat breakfast in bed. And credit to Survivor Panama. In terms of the old school seasons that we've seen, this might be the best in terms of its rewards. That doesn't mean it's the most, flashy rewards that we've covered. It's not like China where they're going to the Great Wall to eat a meal. But I feel like the ones on this season are so memorable when you combine them with the cast. Like between the Casa de Charmin, the wine that was drank in the Casa de Charmin, the wet bed, the trip to the Panamanian fishing village where Shane smokes all the cigarettes. Every reward this season has hit for me. I think there's probably a couple Lamina ones that didn't do much, but credit to production here. I got one more thing actually from Breakfast in Bed.
Okay.
It's Bruce's quote, one of my favorite quotes of the episode. It is, "I thought that it was a meal fit for a king and royalty." I don't know how Bruce envisions royal meals, but I don't know if this is exactly what the king does every morning, going to a wet bed and having breakfast. So now I'm good for the immunity challenge. You want to hit on this one?
Is there a name for the Survivor format of challenge that this is?
I'm not sure.
Where it goes by stages. Maybe we need a name for it. Because this is a pretty standard thing at this point in the season.
I'm not sure what it's called. It's very new era coded. Because there's so many of these in Survivor's 40s.
But it's one of those challenges where it's really 4 challenges in one, where at each stage people are eliminated. First stage They have to dig through a bunch of sand, get through a thing. The first 6 people to do that move on. At that stage, Aris, Suri, and Bruce are eliminated. Then it's a brain teaser and going through a maze. The first 3 people to make it through there move on. The back 3 are eliminated. At that point, Terry, Sally, and Austin move on. They beat Shane. Then it's a rope bridge where they have to go across with 2 planks and then climb a hill. And then race through a series of tunnels and towers. We get to Terry, Sally, and Austin. Great. Lamina is in a great spot. They're safe. We're good. Screw Kasaya. Comes down to Terry versus Sally. What should Terry do here, Clyde?
Once again, I'm sitting on my couch, yelling at the screen, Terry, throw the challenge. If Terry throws the challenge, the votes dump on Terry.
My notes say, lose, 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 and he wins. He somersaults into the win. He goes, whee! What is he thinking? Can you justify this in any way other than he is a challenge beast?
He's a challenge beast. He's a meat boy through and through. But at the same time, Sally never speaks up and says, Terry, let me win this one. Because she knows that he has the immunity idol. She could give him some advice. So most of the blame should fall on Terry, but I do think Sally deserves just a little bit. Okay, so Terry wins that challenge. That's what, his second? Yeah, that's his second consecutive of the season.
Second consecutive. Second immunity? Second individual?
Yeah, second individual immunity. I will say, I do think there's something to the fact that the last 3 people in this challenge are Austin, Terry, and Sally. Simply, they just need it more than everybody else. And Sally doesn't know this at this moment in the episode, but I think she's essentially competing for Austin's safety. Because if she wins that, then a Kasaya person probably goes home instead.
We have to talk about what Terry does now. Because Terry's plan kind of dictates... There's basically 2 characters left, right? It's Terry and Aris. Shane isn't in the picture for this episode, which I'm fine with. He went to Shane earlier and said, hey, who do you think is the final 4 for you? Like, who's your ideal final 4? Shane says, me, Aris, Courtney, Suri. Crazy final 4 for Shane, just based on his past. Like, Courtney's the craziest part of this. I can't believe that. I don't know why that's... Can you justify that?
Courtney makes a little bit of sense to me because she was in that original Kasaya alliance where Shane swore on Boston's life. So I somewhat understand the Courtney pick. What's more impressive in my mind is the fact that Suri has now swindled her way into Shane's final 4. Because that spot used to be held by Danielle. That was the original alliance running the Kasaya tribe. It was Aris, Shane, Danielle, Courtney. So both of those picks are a little bit strange, but it's helpful for me at least just to get a sense of what are people thinking long-term in this majority alliance that's currently taking control of the game. I'm surprised you hate this plan so much.
I hate this plan because this plan is, hey, Bruce and Danielle. Once again, he does the thing where he is like, let me make things easier for you for the next 10 nights. What do I have to do to get you in this car today? Like, it feels like a used car salesman kind of move. At one point, he goes up to Danielle in the shelter and he whispers, I can't even recreate this in a room without another head. He gets so close to her and whispers. It's gross.
What does he whisper to her? He uses his classic line. It's, let me take the burden of tribal council off you for the next 10 days.
Yeah. It's insane. Here's his offer. Danielle, if you come to my side, you can have my immunity idol. Not, you can hold on to it. You can have it. You can have the most powerful thing in the game, and I'm showing it to you if you come over to my side. And we take out Aris, I guess. Bruce, he just says, look, you're on the bottom. They told me you're on the bottom. You won't be on the bottom with us. I hate this plan.
Why?
I hate it.
What about this plan do you dislike? Okay, we can break it up. We'll start with the Danielle component. Why do you hate him bringing Danielle over, showing her the idol, and offering it to her if she flips?
I hate this because why would you give up your idol? Why would you offer it? At most, I think he should be revealing it and saying, look, I have this. Things are going to go real well for me. You should come over to my side. Offering to hand it to her. Ain't no way she's getting it now. He's just given up his ace in the hole. For nothing. He showed it. What did he get out of it?
Well, the theory behind it is that Danielle flips. I don't hate the idea of offering her the idol. I hate the idea of giving her the idol. I think Terry could say, Danielle, hold the carrot out in front of her and say, flip over, and next round I'll give it to you. He doesn't need to give it to her the next round.
No, but
based on what we know about Terry, he would 100% give it to her.
Okay,
right?
Okay, so you like a version of this where the people involved aren't those people. I'm seeing the version of this where he would actually give it to her and blow up his own spot.
Well, would that blow up his own spot, though? Because what's his alternative? Who would he pull in other than Danielle at this stage of the game? Because I think he makes the correct read. I think Danielle and Bruce are the two best people to go after. Bruce, right. he has a pre-established connection with from the old men's tribe. He has intel saying that Bruce is on the bottom of current Kasaya. Plus, Bruce had votes cast against him in the pre-merge. Like, Bruce has every reason to flip at this point in the season. So I think Bruce is the right call. And Danielle just spent the last day or two on Exile Island with Austin. So she has that connection to the Lamina members now.
All right, let me refine my take. Let me make it a little clearer.
Okay.
I don't hate who he's going after. I think he makes the right call there. I like the assessing who's on the bottom with Shane thing and going after those people. I like that. I just don't like how he does it. I don't like the dangling of the idol. I don't like the come over and be bottom five with, make final five with us, right? He kind of gives Bruce the same thing he gave Suri last week. It's the approach. I don't get why Terry's the guy doing all of this. Aris should be the main one on Danielle, because I think as soon as Terry gets involved, it blows up. Not Aris, I'm sorry. Austin.
Yeah, I agree. You send him as the agent to go speak to her, and you just sit back.
They've just bonded for 2 days in misery, right? Danielle should be very unhappy with her tribe, who just sent her to exile. This is a great narrative, if it comes from Austin. Bruce, I think you got to go through Sally, because Sally just went on reward with him.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Terry needs to be delegating, and he just doesn't. When he's the one taking the lead, these strategies just don't come together. He's been so good at everything in Survivor but making plans. He's great at shelters.
Which is a huge part of Survivor.
Yeah, he's great at the outplay and the outlast, and he cannot outwit for shit. Like, that can't be the name of the episode, but maybe it should be.
Wit for shit? I actually kind of like that one. That might be the title.
We'll have to censor it. Could you censor both outwit and shit?
Yeah, put an asterisk in both. Asterisks on both of them.
He just can't. And I don't know when he's going to realize that's just a fundamental flaw in his game, and none of these plans are working out. And I think another piece of this, when he goes to Austin and breaks this down, right? Austin is so in favor. He's so much of a yes man. Quote, "Have I ever told you what a stud you are?"
Yeah.
No, we need to be thinking a little bit more here. Someone needs to be pushing back on, hey, you have the nuclear option. Maybe don't offer to hand it away.
That's fair. I will say this is a variant of Yul's strategy on Cook Islands. Because in literally the exact same round of the game, at the final 9, this is where Yul approaches Penner and shows him the idol and says, hey, you should come work with the I-2-4, and then we can run the game from there. He doesn't offer Penner the idol, but I think it's really interesting that Terry attempts the exact or close to the same thing as Yul just one season prior. Obviously for Terry, it does not work out nearly as well. But Terry actually went a step further with his negotiation. I think the parallels between Terry and Yul are really interesting given this idol. We talked a bit about Terry and his decisions here, but we need to hit on Kasaya because the dysfunction never stops with this group. The big question for them this week is, who are they going to dump the votes on? Which Lamina player? Aris brings up a good point. He says that we should vote for Sally because I think Terry has the idol and he would be way more willing to give that idol to Austin than Sally. And the basis for his argument is that I know the Lamina players are voting for me. I'm the one whose neck is on the chopping block. So if I'm the one that could potentially go home here, I should have a little bit more say in terms of where we put the votes. I agree with Aris in this situation. How do you feel about Aris's outlook on this one?
No, I mean, I think he has a good read. He is in a tribe of babies, and he's trying to read at a second grade level, right? Because this is the era of Survivor we're in. If you are thinking 2 moves ahead, you're too advanced, right? 1 move ahead is all you need. And everyone around him is like, no, chill. Yeah.
Courtney especially. She's the one saying that we need to vote out Austin right now.
And this Courtney-Aris conflict here is so petty and dumb. Like, it sparks over nothing. She says, I disagree. She doesn't have a good reason. She just says she disagrees. And Aris makes her face. And if you can find this for the thumbnail, he makes a face when she says, I disagree, where his mouth gets so small. He goes like...
Okay.
Like, it is such a distinct... I know we've compared Shane to a toddler walking around before. It's such a baby face to make. And he gets immediately irate. And it's another moment where we see Kasaya members who hate Courtney.
Yeah.
We're really not getting a sense for why, but we are seeing this very clear evidence that they all do.
Well, I feel like this argument is evidence as to why people don't like Courtney. The fact that she's so hyperfixated on voting against Austin, even when there are legitimate reasons to voting out Sally instead. Like, I feel like this was one of the few building blocks this entire season of understanding why Courtney is perceived as this horrible person on the island.
Yeah, I would be very... I don't like watching the extra behind-the-scenes episode, the Cut for Time bonus Boko, or whatever you call it. I'd be curious on this one to see if there's an extra clip somewhere of Courtney, like, kicking somebody in the shins. Like it feels like it has to be something really blatant that didn't make the cut. Or, like, is every night Courtney in bed screaming? Or hitting
worse,
someone with...
shaking the rock garden and taking some of the rocks out and putting them back in the wilderness.
Is Courtney every night going into the rock garden, taking the smallest rock and throwing it as hard as she can at the shelter? Like it has to be something egregious.
I will watch that episode at some point and report back to you. Because I do feel like this is a season that will have a good behind-the-scenes episode. Most of the time, they're pretty uneventful, but when you have the opportunity for more Kasaya content, I'm going to need to take it at some point.
Yeah.
Last thing I want to throw out before we go to Tribal Council is Cirie. Because once again, she's behind the scenes, working as the puppet master, pulling the strings. In the pre-merge, when Cirie wanted the Kasaya members to fight with each other, she was the instigator. She was leaking information from person to person. That way they would get into these arguments. And now, Cirie doesn't want them to argue anymore. She wants Kasaya to stick together as this united group because she feels that she has a lot of people that want to ride to the end of the game with her. We know that Shane envisions her in the end game. It feels like Danielle and Courtney see her going long run with them. The only people that don't have long-term plans with Cirie right now, as far as we know, are Aris and Bruce.
Right.
So she's well positioned in this group, and she wants that group to stick together. So what does she do? When Aris and Courtney are fighting, she's the person that goes in between them and separates them. She goes and speaks to Courtney and then convinces Aris to go along with Courtney's plan.
Yeah.
It's insane work on her end. I wish we got more time from Cirie seeing how she kind of built that bridge between those two parties. Because right before Tribal Council, it felt like those two people were not going to work together.
Yeah, I want to hear everything that's going on in Cirie's head because it feels so smart. She's in this disaster class and she is navigating it so nicely. I just wish there was more to go on, right? Because it's so great to see. But the good news is I know that Cirie's going to go on for a while. And so at some point we have to get, like, mathematically speaking, we have to get more from her.
Yeah.
So
I think you need to give Suri a lot of credit for keeping this group together. It's easy to keep an alliance together when people genuinely like each other. I think of the Reba 4 in Survivor 45, that group of Austin, Drew, Dee, and Julie.
That's cool.
It's easy to stay in an alliance like that where you want to be around those other people. It's different keeping an alliance together when everyone's at each other's throats. Last thing I'll mention, this is my second last thing to mention before Tribal Council, is we get a quote from Terry. As the sun is setting and people are getting their torches to go to Tribal, Austin tells Terry that, hey, you might need to pass me the idol. And Terry says, quote, we'll see what happens, which means I'm not giving it to you. And I don't know why.
I think for everything Terry says about being a team player, at the end of the day, if he can't read the field, and he has demonstrated that he cannot, he's going to look out for number one to the ends of the earth, right? He will not put up for someone else. He's just going to shut up and take care of himself.
How do you think the Lamina players will perceive Terry now that he's held on to his idol? Austin says before he gets voted out that Terry is this stud. He's someone that he looks up to on the Lamina tribe. Do you think Austin is the type of person that will have bitterness towards Terry because he didn't give him the idol?
I think it depends on what he'll do. If Terry hands the idol over to Danielle now, and I'm Austin on the jury, I'm pissed. But if Terry manages to play it really effectively next week and flip a couple people and take out Shane, totally different environment. I think Austin is inclined to be forgiving and stay close to Terry. But knowing what we've seen Terry do over and over in dropping the ball socially, I don't know. I don't like his odds.
And that could be a rough look for Terry should he sit in the end somehow. I bet his final Tribal Council argument would be, I'm a team player. I was always Lamina first. And I don't know if this is the type of jury that would buy into that and agree with him, or say, you're not actually team first. You never passed the idol when we needed it. So we'll need to wait and see. Going to Tribal Council, a couple things to hit on here. One of them is that Shane claims that it's impossible for any of his Kasaya allies to flip over. Shane is one of the most confident people in this tribal. And at the end of the day, he's right.
He is. He is. And props to production. I thought he might be wrong. I thought there was a chance that the flip happened here. Not a huge chance, but a little one. Suri is looking really comfortable. I want to point this out. We get shots of everybody in this tribal, except maybe Sally. Unfortunately, everyone else has at least a little bit of discomfort, a little bit of anxiety, right? Suri's cool as a cucumber. She is confident. She's not in charge, at least not openly, but she feels so good that she's just here to have fun and talk to Jeff Probst. Whatever. It's great. I'm thrilled for her, too.
So we know as the vote is happening, we see people write down Austin, other people write down Aris. Bruce goes into the voting booth. He writes down that initial A and they pan away, a classic Survivor editing move.
You know they love it. Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness.
They were eating that up when Bruce walked in there. So your final vote, it's a 6-3. 6 on Austin, 3 on Aris. The Lamina players stick together for another round. Terry, Sally, and Austin all vote against Aris here. Austin is sent out of the game, and I have the first epitaph of the season. My epitaph for Austin is a quote from Austin himself. It is, quote, Marvin Gaye said it best, let's get it on in this piece. Thank you, Austin, for that. Do you think Austin comes back in a future season?
Yes. Wait.
We have 4 returnees from this cast.
I was about to clarify that. We have 4
returnees.
Shane, Terry, Austin.
So you're locking in Austin?
I'm going to say maybe. Does he? You tell me.
He does not return in the future.
Damn.
Austin does a couple stuff after the show. He wrote a book called High Points and Lows, Life, Faith, and Figuring It All Out. He's been a pastor of the Baptist Church since the year 2019 as well. I couldn't find much else on Austin after his time on Survivor. But I will say, I give him a lot of credit. I think there's an argument for calling Austin the best holistic player from that Lamina tribe. outside Dan Fuego, because Dan Fuego was probably the best player on the entire cast, if not for the Exile Island twist. But Austin ran the early game. He was at the center of that group alongside the iconic Nick Stanberry, and I think the two of them were able to convince a lot of people, like Terry, to make a lot of moves that weren't necessarily in their best interest. So I guess my hot take for this season is that if the numbers were flipped and challenges in the pre-merge worked out a different way, and Lamina is the one that goes into the merge with the 6-4 numbers advantage, I bet that Austin is the one that runs the game, and he potentially sits at the end and wins the whole thing. But that might be too hypothetical.
I mean, that's really high praise for the mayor of Ponderosa, you know. But he played a solid game. The faking of the throwing the challenge and giving it up, that whole thing was a misstep. I mean, he was just too trusting, I think, in the end. I think Terry has persuaded this Lamina tribe that he can do it. He can lead them into battle. And he keeps failing. And I'm not any expert on military history, but most generals don't get that many chances to fail before they're demoted or pulled from the battlefield.
It's also interesting in that for the pre-merge, I didn't get the sense that Terry was the general of Lamina. He might have been the general in terms of challenges, but in terms of the actual strategy of that tribe, Austin had way more say. He was the one going to Terry and convincing Terry to vote out people like Dan Fuego. But when you get to the merge and the stakes heighten, that's where Austin takes a back seat and allows Terry to pave their path, and it ultimately leads to nowhere. So R.I.P. Austin. I was sad to see him go. Maybe you should read his book at some point, or maybe I'll get it, and it can be I think it'll be the 4th Survivor book on the shelf behind me, and maybe the first one that I actually read.
It doesn't sound like the sort of thing you would like to read. This doesn't look like it's about Survivor at all.
Maybe I'll order that and get back to you. Where do you find this book?
It's $14.
Is that paperback or hardcover?
It's $14 on the publisher website. It's $12 on Amazon. You can get an audio CD for $8.67.
Is it narrated by Austin?
I have no idea.
If it's narrated by Austin, I will get the CD and I'll listen to it to and from work every day.
Okay, read by the author interview included.
There we go. Okay, I'm sold.
It's a used CD. Only one left in stock. Order soon.
One left in stock? Okay, I gotta order quick.
You're gonna order that, and some Amazon warehouse worker is gonna have to go get out a sword and a torch to get into that corner of the warehouse. It's the most remote. That order's gonna come in, and the warehouse worker's gonna be like, I have to wear snow boots to get this? I have to climb? You're going to send somebody into the deepest bowels of a warehouse.
I think that order goes in, all the lights in the Amazon facility turn red. Jeffrey Bezos himself walks up to the front and says, "It has happened. Someone has ordered it. And we need one volunteer, one Amazon employee
it's like
to go fetch this book."
It's like when a kid comes through the door at Monsters, Inc. It's a red alert. Everybody's like, we haven't prepared for this, even though we should have. Goodbye, Austin.
Yeah, let's go to winners and losers. Winner of the week, we both have Suri, right? You gave it to Suri?
I did give it to Suri.
There we go. I'm happy that we're in agreement on this. I feel like we have not fallen on the same person for most of these winners and losers. But
yeah,
I mentioned it earlier. Great week for Suri. When she wants the tribe to fight, they fight. And when she wants them to come together, they do just that. And I feel like she has a great long-term outlook for this season. If the numbers dwindle to just the Kasaya 6, Bruce feels like the clear outsider of that group. So if Bruce goes out at 6, then you have Suri, Danielle, Courtney, Aris, Shane. And almost every other person in that group wants to go to the end with Suri. The only person who I'm a little bit iffy on is Aris right now. So I like her chances.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just echo that. She is comfortably in the middle. If people are willing to leave Shane or Aris behind, Courtney or Danielle, Bree will be just fine with them. She's just in a really comfortable spot. I feel like I oftentimes give a winner to somebody who's sitting in the middle, right? They're not a leader, but they're not a straggler. Like, middle of the pack is a great spot to be at Final 8. Who's your loser?
Loser is Terry.
Yeah, me too.
Even though I agree with a lot of Terry's decisions this week, the fact that he held on to that idol feels like such a missed opportunity. Well, I think that Terry's only route to the end at this point is him just winning out or finding more idols. Because the second he's vulnerable at a tribal council, everyone's going to want to vote him out.
Yeah, I disagree with almost everything he did this week, except for win the challenge. And so, and ask Sally to consider including women in plans. He did the bare minimum. And I was like, good job, Terry, because the bar was so low after last week.
I will say Terry should be in contention for the biggest meat boy that we've ever covered on the podcast. Is there another contestant that you can think of that is this good in challenges and this poor in the other facets of the game?
I don't think so.
I think that's an interesting title. And I feel like if we watched Panama first instead of Samoa, you would be singing the praises of Terry.
I would not be singing the praises of Terry in this moment. What drives me nuts about Terry is the contradiction. He is talking a team game and walking an individual game, right? That disconnect that he doesn't seem to realize is driving me nuts and pissing me off.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Quick dishonorable mention to Royal Meals. I don't keep up with the Royal family. I don't really follow what they do on a day-to-day basis, but I assume they're doing well off financially. And I don't think that when they sit down for breakfast in bed, they do it in a wet bed. Or at least I hope they don't. And Bruce seems to think that. So they get my dishonorable mention.
You know, I saw an interview once with a former butler for then Prince or Duke. He was the butler for the guy who is now the King of England. And he was talking about how these royals are so coddled from birth, especially of that generation, so coddled that they can't do anything. Their pajamas are pressed for them. The toothpaste is put out on their brush for them, right? Everything is done for them. And the prince once rang him and said, I need you to come help me in the study. The butler comes to the study and is like, how can I help you, Your Majesty? And he had dropped a paper to drop it into the wastebasket.
No.
It didn't go into the wastebasket, and he couldn't fathom picking it up himself.
Yeah, that's not a question of capability. That's just being an asshole.
Yeah, but it's you've been raised so fully to have everything done for you that he doesn't even think he's being an asshole. He just thinks that's what he's supposed to do.
Oh.
Like if you've spent 80 years of your life having everything done, it's not better, but I guess it's not deliberate. So I like that dishonorable. I also have a dishonorable this week.
What? A double dishonorable?
Double dishonorable. This week, Paramount and CBS announced they're canceling the Colbert Late Show. I'm a huge fan of Colbert. He's won 10 Emmys over the last few years hosting the Late Show. Consistently, very, very high ratings. I think he's won a Peabody Award for humor. At some point, he will certainly win the Twain Prize for humor. He has been canceled for, quote, financial reasons, immediately after Paramount settled a lawsuit with the Trump administration, which is very suspicious and feels very political.
I didn't know that component of it. I only heard the financial piece. I just thought late night television at large was dying out because less people are watching live TV.
Clyde, this network can afford to own an island on Fiji. I think they can afford to maintain an office in the building they've had an office in for 70 years. He's on the same stage that Johnny Carson was on, and Dave Letterman. It's not like they're building a new set. He sits at a desk and talks to celebrities, right? It's a very blatantly political move, and this network who produces this show that we talk about all the time, they keep making things worse, right? Paramount Plus keeps getting worse. Their pricing is so shady. They make it harder and harder. If you're on the base plan, you can't even download Survivor episodes anymore, or at least new seasons of Survivor anymore. This network doesn't really have a backbone, and it sucks because I like watching Survivor. I love the Colbert Show. And I'm just really disappointed in that. And I want to add my voice to those saying, hey, this sucks and he deserves support. And, yeah.
And has he said what he wants to do next? Is his plan to do another late night show or?
So he will run until May. Like, he'll finish this season. So he's got he's got like 8 months or 10 months left. So he's got time, basically. But
okay.
And I think things are just going to get weirder and sharper, and he's going to say whatever he wants to say because he's got the platform to say it.
Yeah. What's your prediction? What's he do next after this?
I don't know, because every other network already has a late night guy. I think he's the best. He's a genius. He's incredibly well read. He loves The Lord of the Rings, which obviously so do I. He can quote massive swaths of poetry and philosophy from memory. He's one of the smartest people on television. And so whatever he does next will be very thoughtful and kind, and I will certainly be following him to whatever he does next. But
I'll be interested to see, because Conan doesn't have a late night show anymore. He had one a while back, but I think he pivoted entirely to doing podcasting and his own independent stuff, right? Or am I completely wrong on that?
Yeah, he just does his podcast, but he did late night for like 30 years, so that was kind of a retirement. Clyde, it's really easy to do a podcast, clearly.
Yeah, well, obviously. Well, I was just thinking maybe that's the route that he takes. He follows the Conan path.
Listen, Stephen Colbert, sir, if you're listening to Survivor Analytics, you're welcome. Listen, I'll step aside if you want to co-host with Clyde.
Yeah, Stephen Colbert, feel free to send in your application to be the third co-host of Survivor Analytics. Can you imagine? Maybe I'll make an edit. I'll do a Photoshop of him announcing that he's leaving the show to become our third co-host.
So next time on Survivor, Terry seems to be making everybody frustrated, and Shane pulls his pants down and starts showing everybody his genitals. So the toddler thing is continuing. Like, Shane's doing stuff on Survivor that would be 17 lawsuits today, and probably should have been back then. So we don't say this enough. Make sure if you're listening to the show, wherever, if you feel like giving us a review, please do. 5 stars are always appreciated. Leave a little tip. It's going to ask you a few questions. Follow us on social media at Survivor Analytics. TikTok and YouTube are the big ones. And then there's others, but we won't mention them.
Yeah, the unspoken ones. I will say, I just finished up a series today on YouTube going through every Final Tribal Council in the history of the show and explaining who I would vote for if I sat on the jury. And despite that being the criteria for that video and that entire series, people will still comment and say, like, you're wrong, or you shouldn't have any say in this. Like, the whole premise of the video is that it's my opinion. So
I love it.
But feel free to check that out.
Happy. Yeah.
You probably have a sense of where I stand for the seasons that we've covered, but you can hear my thoughts on every season, including Panama. You can get a sneak peek into my thoughts on the season's winner and whether or not I agree with them. We'll catch you next week for episode 10, Survivor Panama. The 2/3 mark. We're getting our way through.